Welcome to the Go Be Rewarded Podcast. Today we are talking about company culture. What is it? How can you change it? And does anybody in your company even know what it is? I think that'll be an interesting piece of the podcast we'll be talking about today. And so I'm actually being joined here by Jessica from Big Picture Results.
Hello.
Her company, she has an accounting firm and mostly remote workforce, if I'm correct.
Everyone is remote.
Okay, everyone's remote workforce. And that was the main reason I brought her on the podcast because, as you know, everybody works here in my office, and I know that company culture, a lot of things can change when you start talking about remote workforces. So, Jessica Hornbeck, excellent accounting agency. If anybody does need help with their finances, she actually does all the finances here at Go Be Rewarded. And also, you may also remember her from the 1999 Streets of Rage Blaze. She was actually doing that. She ended up becoming an accountant later, changed her name to Jessica Hornbeck. But you can pull that up later. But
blast from the past.
But she does kick just as much butt. I can promise you that. And one of the reasons why we actually brought up this topic today was because we are nominated for the CBAD Awards for the best place to work.
Congrats!
So we are very very pleased with that. But so first off, what would you say company culture is?
Good question to start off with. Company culture, for me, are going to be those values, those qualities that really make up your brand, the spirit of your company, the people that make up your team that are really going to drive home that client experience. So the first few words that are going to come to mind for both your client and your overall peers and colleagues in the community in which you operate.
Well, I have a much broader definition of company culture. I think it's what you let grow. Very similar to a bread culture. Interestingly enough, the Gobidas family, we have a bread culture that dates back to about 1100 AD. And it's one of those things where, the culture has changed a lot over that time, but it's interesting because bread culture is one of those things where you have to put it in a certain environment and you feed it certain things, and you give it so much time, and then at the end result is what you get, and you're going to get a different type of bread, or it's going to be different softness, different hardness, different crust, all those different things you're going to get. There's not a whole lot you can do in between. Yeah, you can make sure you're baking it right and you don't over knead the dough and all of that, but when you're talking about purely from a culture standpoint, it's kind of you're setting up the environment and then just letting it go from there, and you kind of almost have to restart all over again or change the conditions again on your next batch. Like I said, I think that culture is a little bit less input and output. It's a little bit more environment and the results, and then going back and maybe changing the environment again. And you can feel free to disagree with me on that. Yeah. So
I'm not going to disagree just yet.
Okay.
Because I think you're bang on with using this bread example of culture being that basic spirit, right? Those inherent qualities that you're vocalizing, sharing, and day in, day out, living and breathing with your team, right? The people that make up your company. And I think as long as all those factors are crystal clear, and then to your point on the environment, right? You're setting them up for success, whether it's, environment being resources that they have access to, right? You're realizing maybe workflows A and B as it pertains to this process didn't go so well this month. Okay, is it a people problem where that part of what's working in the environment, right? My human talent, did they do something wrong? Is it maybe the clients they're interfacing with drove something to go wrong in that process? Or maybe we need to look back and fix the process, right? But yeah, you do have some control, not necessarily, instantly, day to day, but like you said, maybe for the next turn of this bread, right? You can kind of tweak a few things, whether it's in the process or to set up for success end result. You're offering what we're doing more recently in our team, using Big Picture as an example, is paid provide training for everyone on our team to become an Excel expert, because we're realizing that's really going to streamline a lot of the end result, whether it's financials, projections, but it allows them to provide better results while becoming engaged and encouraging them to grow in some other aspect, right? So I do think I agree with everything you're saying with regards to providing the right environment, setting people up for success. But the beauty of being gatekeepers of our firm, right, as owners and working with our core team and shaping that culture, and the fact that, like bread, right, you're always going to have another iteration. Maybe for the second or third round, you realize, there were a couple of breaks in so-and-so wasn't a good fit, and we didn't realize until month 2 or 3. What can we do on the front end, right? That pre-qualifying part of our process with bringing on talent. And it can be as simple as editing your job description. And we were just talking offline that we don't see this enough, right? When companies are looking for talent, they get so hyper-focused on the job and the tasks. What about the human or the heart piece of it, right? What's it going to feel like to work at your company? What kind of people do you want to rock with that you're realizing it's going to bring more cohesiveness when you're working together as a team to drive those synergies? You got to be thinking about those qualities at the jump.
Yes, that is true. And it is one of those things too. I know there's a lot of HR factors that come into that as well, which is unfortunate for California. There's a lot of things that you can't necessarily ask, but you need to kind of go roundabout and ask about. I'll give you a great example. I think one of the things here is, especially like my web team and a lot of my media team, they're all Catholics, and a lot of them even went to the same small Catholic university. I think 3 of them did. And, they, surprisingly, one of my web designers, we hired another web designer, and she was like, oh, yeah, I remember we went on a mission trip in Poland like 10 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Together, and he's from Maryland. He's not even from here. But it's interesting from a cultural standpoint. They all get along very well. I'm not saying because they're Catholic, but they share a lot of those same values.
Right.
And, it's one of those things where it's interesting because I actually think I have like 3 separate mini subcultures here in the office, just between departments, between my web, media, and advertising team, just because I think they require some different workflows and stuff like that. But I'll also give an example too of company culture, and where I think we really messed up at one point was in 2019. We ended up, it was one of those things. It was like 2018. It was December, around around Christmas time. My wife and I were sitting there like, well, what are we going to do to improve our company? And we're like, let's put customers first. Like, this is going to be there's like the year of the dragon, year of the rat, and the Chinese zodiac. Like, yep. This is going to be the year of the customer service.
Okay.
And that's we wanted to set up everything. And so this was when we were much smaller too. We probably only had about 5 or 6 employees. We're like, we're going to hire 2 new employees. One's going to be for new customers. One's going to be for recurring customers. And, anything that customer needs, we're going to make sure that it gets handled for them, and you would say from the outset, that is a great idea.
It's a great approach, but it could get slippery real quick.
Yeah, and so that ended up becoming to the point where the company culture changed to putting the customer first and not our people first. And we ended up getting horrible employee retention and horrible client retention that whole year.
Wow.
Based on that. And I think it's one of those things, as far as a company culture standpoint goes, when you're talking about micromanaging and getting things in there, I think if you take care of your people and you set your people up for success and you make sure that they have the right values in mind, they will take care of your customers.
Yep.
In turn, it doesn't go the other way around. If you don't take care of your people definitely won't take care of your customers.
Well, it's interesting, right? Because micromanaging is going to produce the opposite results what you want, right? You're
Exactly.
not going to force your people like in any relationship, you can't force someone to do what you want them to do. There has to be buy-in, they have to be engaged. When you're owner of a growing company and you're really looking to scale, you have to sort of get out of your own way and give up control, because the only way you're going to grow, right, as CEO of your company is by delegating. There's a limited amount of hours in each day, and you want to get all these things done, whether they're, building out your sales process, some marketing, maybe you're looking at a potential acquisition. Like, you need all hands on deck. And the way to be able to do that starts with you as owner, giving up that control, being really clear on what needs to get done. How are you going to ensure these things get done, whether it's good workflow, process, accountability, dialogue, right? But you have to be open for ongoing dialogue and feedback with your entire team. Everyone that you're saying, okay, hey, I'm relying on you to help me grow this thing, and I'm giving you this set of responsibility. And instead of micromanaging, be super clear on what the responsibilities are. Having regular discussion that is timeline and accountability based, so you can sort of go through what's working, what's not, so you're continually improving your process. But the empowerment piece, besides setting them up for success and making sure that you're developing them as they need professionally and personally, but you have to empower them with the way you operate. If you've asked them to take over certain tasks, there's always going to be this and this is a great example, right? There's going to be an interim transition. They're taking that off your plate. If the clients are continuing to ask you for that stuff, don't go and respond and take care of it because it's quicker. You're disempowering whoever you delegated that responsibility to. I'm not saying kick back for a week, right?
Yeah.
But like kick back for a day or two and you'll be amazed. Things will start being handled. And all of a sudden you're freeing up time and space so that you're walking one step closer to your objectives of growing this company, because the work is getting handled beneath you that is beneath your skill set, right? You shouldn't be doing things that someone else could either do better or that you're just not good at, or it could just be done by someone else, right? And then continuing, I'll just wrap up this one thought on the empowerment piece, right? Not doing things that you assign to others, but also giving them bandwidth to make decisions. That's how they're going to grow in their role. And whether it's a decision that has financial impact, you draw some sort of parameters. Hey, this is how much you could spend, or if it's not going to cost me more than $500, make the decision, fill me in later. Because you might not think you're micromanaging, but if you're kind of interrupting how they can add impact and see a process to fruition or make a decision, if you're interrupting by asking a question and being like, oh, how much? Oh, and they have to check in with you constantly, by default, that's not driving something efficiently.
Yeah, and I think, some of the things that, because, I think there's an issue with company culture in general, because it's a very broad topic, and people, there's these like weird seminars about it, and people are like, company culture, and everybody needs to take a DISC assessment, and you need to do all, and it's like, I think people overcomplicate it a whole lot. I think there's some simple things that, when I'm talking about changing the environment, that I think most business owners can change if they wanted to. And I'll kind of give some examples, and maybe you'll even have a few examples for your company, which I think you ended up taking, one of my ideas that I'm going to be bringing up here and implementing in your company as well. But I actually changed the company structure from that 2019 where I had the two type of client managers. Yeah. I ended up just making department heads after that. I have a web department, I have a ads department, and I have a media department. And I have heads of that department who are handling everything that is under that umbrella of services. And they're the ones who are going to be talking directly with the client, because the clients also enjoyed the fact that the person who can fix the problem is also the one talking to them. That
Absolutely.
Was the problem with having someone on the phone was like, oh, how are you doing? Have a nice day. Oh, you need the SSL certificate updated on your website? Let me go look up what that is. Hold on.
Right. That doesn't feel good.
So, making those department heads and then even going to, empowering those department heads, doing things like, I opened up my QuickBooks. They now have all their own P&L statements that they can look at for their department. They also have all their own credit cards for that department too. The American Express, you're not sponsoring this, but if you want to, you can.
We love that idea.
But the American Express for each department, and then being able to put those departmental expenses under there, and then, making sure that, they now own a percentage of the company, giving them that kind of empowerment to the point where, I've noticed it's taken, close to about a year, but clients don't really hit me up for very much anymore. And
That's
if
right.
they are, then
That's a thing of beauty. Yeah.
If they are, then that's just usually, we kind of consider this a weird client thing. I end up just kind of clicking forward on the email and it gets taken care of.
Right.
Which is nice. And one of the things that was a very interesting thing that I also got a lot of pushback on from a lot of other business owners was I switched everybody from hourly to salary. And just from a company culture standpoint, I think it changed things pretty drastically. A lot of people were not looking anymore as to, how long am I going to be sitting in this chair? How long am I going to be working on this project? Can I get out on Wednesday for my dental appointment? I want to go to this wedding, can I do it? It's more of, when I switched everyone over to salary, like, oh, I need to get all my projects done. Oh, if I want to go if I want to go take a day off to go to this wedding, let me just make sure I get all my projects done.
Yeah,
first.
It's putting the onus on them. You're treating them not like children, but like respectable, mature members of your team that you value. And I think that's a great way to manage your firm as well as your client relationships, right? In order for it to produce good results and for everyone to be happy, right? Everyone's need to get met, and the start of that is feeling heard. So if you're making sure that, right, you're inclusive, you're driving this collaborative back and forth dialogue, people are going to show up.
Yeah, and it's the interesting thing is because I remember my wife even told me, she was like, well, once you switch everyone to salary, no one's going to show up to work anymore, and you'll have all these people taking days off and stuff like that. And it's actually quite the opposite happened. Maybe my wife listens to this podcast, I don't know, but I'll hear about it later probably.
You can do that though if you have a good culture where everyone in
Yes.
the room, there's trust, they value each other, there's respect, right? They
Value the clients and the work, and they enjoy what they're doing, whereas if someone thinks what they're doing is tedious, they're going to be wanting to work more hourly just because
they're going to take advantage and not kudos to you that works.
And then, I'd say, of course, salary and benefits. I think this has come up a whole lot in 2021, especially. I mean, we had a little bit of a hint of it back in 2019 of just, when it comes to, especially here in San Diego. I know it might be a little bit different because you have a remote workforce, which is great because you can probably not have to worry about some of the salary issues that we have here.
Well, I think the remote workforce, we take into account all the important tips that we just sort of talked through as far as making sure you're building a good culture, you're showing you value your people, you're empowering them. For us, it's been because we're committed and we make sure those things are in place, because otherwise, right, remote workforce, the first thing we all think is, oh, you don't have tabs on them.
Yeah.
It's critical we have all these pieces in place, and the fact that you can work remotely is an added perk.
Okay.
For those of us on the team, right, I wear the two personal hats of I'm a mom and I love to travel. So being able to do my job remotely, that's huge for me. And a good portion of our team loves that. And because they realize this is not an automatic in the overall work environment, right? There's many jobs that require you to go in, day out. And we communicate that. We talk to it. Hey, you got a good thing going, right?
Yeah,
so you got to be able to be candid, transparent, talk about the good and the bad. I have no problem reminding it's not just like, you shake your finger at the bad stuff. You should have at the top of your mind all the good things that make up your firm. And I think because we realize, wow, it's these added perks, but first we're doing a good job of making sure that basic culture and we're aligned with our values as to who we bring on. Because those things are in place, that remote, the fact that we are working remotely ends up being a positive, not a negative. It's not something that I've found I have to keep, maybe in years past, right? If you don't have the right attitude, someone that is a go-getter, self-starter, maybe, but over time you get better at making sure who's part of your team.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where, I think a remote process can work. And first off, my personal opinion is I think because we have a collaborative, creative process here at GoBeRewarded, I think working remotely is a huge hindrance.
Yeah.
I think something like accounting, hopefully you're not getting too creative with my accounting.
Exactly. It definitely depends on the service.
It depends on the service, but I really think that, something when you're talking about, accounting, HR, a lot of professional services, it can definitely be done remotely if they don't have too large of a creative element to them. But I think, as you mentioned, just having that strong culture is going to be even more important with that remote workforce, because you're not going to be able to tap someone on the shoulder every day and ask how they're doing.
Yeah, and I'm just curious, we predominantly are a remote-based company, but I'm curious how many companies are 100% remote, because we're definitely not, we have quarterly meetings, so there are things that COVID has created some limitations there, but we're sort of back to normal where the entire team meets for a quarterly on-site. We talk through our vision, our strategy. We do some team building. We do kind of off-the-cuff team building, fun events. We went paddle boarding a couple months ago. So we are doing, and we also have access to office space. I just met one of our team members at HeraHub, where I have office space. So I do think having that in-person touch point somewhat regularly is the way to go. I would find it really difficult for all, right? Because we're human beings. You like to connect. We want to enjoy the company of the people that we work with, and there needs to be some sort of camaraderie. It is, I think, very difficult if you're 100% over virtual to get there.
And I think COVID kind of proved that. All right, awesome. So on this next segment here, we're actually going to be, we called some companies, and we have our ads director, Matt J., posing as if he is wanting to apply for a job there. He loves his job at GoBeRewarded, so he's not actually trying to apply there, but he just is calling to ask some companies about their company culture. And I think one of the big things about company culture that we didn't really necessarily touch on, which I think we'll kind of see, I haven't listened to these segments yet, but if your employees don't know what your culture is, it's not your culture. You might think you have a culture in your head. Point. If your employees don't know what your culture is, it's not your company culture, it's your culture.
Right.
But it's not your company culture. And then also my other kind of point that I'll kind of bring up is, at the end of the day, company culture happens whether you like it or not. It's, do you want to be part of it?
Yeah, that's a good point.
We'll have some interesting things here. So let's hear the first segment here.
Hey guys, today we're going to call some local businesses and ask them what their company culture is. It'll be exciting to hear the answers.
Innovation Marketing Group, this is Brittany.
Hi Brittany, I found a job on LinkedIn that I was going to apply for, but before I did, I wanted to ask you, could you sum up your company culture in 2 or 3 sentences?
I'm sorry, what was that?
I wanted to apply for a job, but company culture is important to me, so I'm just calling to ask if you could tell me a little bit about your company culture.
Well, may I ask what position you're going to be applying for?
The social media manager position.
Okay, you know what, let me transfer you to the current one, and maybe she can give you a better idea for that department, okay?
You can't tell me about your company culture? That's scary.
Oh, no. It's wonderful. It's great. I don't know how. 3 sentences? You're putting me on the spot here.
I know. It's kind of unfair of me to do. I'll give you a second. That's fine.
It's not unfair. It's completely
Awesome.
Yeah, but I mean, I just feel like I'm
Okay.
executive. It might be better for you to talk to
Perfect.
that you're actually going to be in.
Well, thank you. That's great. Yeah.
So just give me one moment, okay?
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's wonderful.
Stupendous.
As our menu options have changed.
Yeah, so we'll just comment on that piece right there. So far we got It's Wonderful, and from what Matt told me, he got put on hold from there and didn't really get anywhere else. So, kind of covering that first point, if the person answering the phone doesn't know your company culture, that's...
Well, it's troubling that, one, she didn't know what it was, and two, that she couldn't come up with a few juicier words and wonderful and, oh my gosh, I need to pass you off to someone else.
Yeah, that's so that's I mean, I would say that's something where, imagine if that was like your boss calling, like that could have been, an interesting little thing that maybe I'll do here one day. But,
it's a good surprise pop quiz, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's something that a lot of people don't think about. But I think also at the end of the day, employees also, they don't necessarily, if you don't instill company culture in them, if you don't, let them know or communicate with them, they're going to know what the results of the company culture. And yes, it might actually be wonderful and a great place to work. But if they don't know what conditions were put in place or, what, the values are of the company, then it's going to be very hard for them to actually even put into words. You might get like, oh, we have a ping pong table and we drink beer on Fridays. And that's not company culture, unfortunately.
Well, the observation that comes to me, if she's unable to vocalize it, I would say that, to your point, the culture doesn't exist, right? Because it's not a matter of being told by your superiors or others in the company what the culture is, right? Because someone could tell you it's this all day long, but unless they're living and breathing it and you're expected to live and breathe it, there's no culture there. Because if it's actually in practice and action, you'll be able to come up. Maybe you're not gonna say it verbatim as it looks like on their website, but you're gonna come up with a few, descriptive words that evoke some sort of emotion and interest. And hey, this is a great place to work at. That is wonderful.
Yeah, that is wonderful. So we'll go on to the next one. We'll see here.
Hi, I saw a job opening on your marketing team, and before I applied, I was just curious if you could tell me a little bit about your company culture.
Can I transfer you over to our HR?
Sure, thank you. Hi, Jennifer. I saw a job opening online for a marketing position, and before I applied, I just wanted to reach out and see if you could tell me a little bit about your company culture. I wanted to see if you guys were a good fit for me.
Oh, okay. Well, we have a science personnel mostly, so we are very on task, if you will.
Okay. How does that make you different from other companies that do the same thing as you guys? Like being on task, is that something unique to your culture?
I wouldn't say it's unique. I'm guessing that this is the only lab I've ever worked in, so I'm guessing that's probably typical for most research and development sort of companies.
Okay.
So, yeah, and then for the marketing position specifically, it would be a lot of obviously social media outreach and
She's smart. She knows to put it back on him.
Yeah.
Interacting with the scientists and to get the specific details for
So a job description.
Yeah.
Like cells and mediums.
Okay.
That we are advertising.
Perfect. Right on. Thank you for answering my questions. I appreciate it. Have a nice day. All right. Bye.
Okay, so that's the HR person.
Yeah. And she's not vocalizing it either.
Yeah, so if your HR person doesn't know what your company culture is,
They're on task. Whatever it is,
they're on
they
task.
are there.
Apparently the task isn't company culture, though.
Wow.
But yeah, we're very on task. That's
amazing too, right? Because you would think whoever's in charge of HR is able to just quickly, top of mind, let you know what this company's all about.
Yeah.
Culture is not besides the point of having the question of culture, which I don't think is a hot topic unless you're doing something really wrong. Like, why are we sending this straight to HR?
This shouldn't be a spicy, this
Yeah.
isn't, this isn't, President Clinton on CNN or something like that asking about a cigar tube. This is like, this is just asking about company culture.
Wow.
People are, starting to defer.
Uncomfortable.
Yeah, people are very I'll admit I was not expecting this. I thought this would be a little bit more of like people saying like, oh, we have a ping pong table and we play foosball on Fridays,
right.
and Ted works in the in accounting, but he's great. He knows how to make lattes, and he something.
Hey, that might not be the most professional answer, but at least it lets you know a little more about this. Company likes to have fun, people like to work with each other. At least it tells you something.
Oh, and that's the interesting part. You could even say small words like fun. We like to have fun here, or we like to be creative, or, we like to, or heck, even, the one that kind of failed for me, even if someone said, hey, our company culture is we put the customer first. Something like that,
Sure.
like, you gotta, instill that in somebody, because as you can see, company culture happens whether you like it or not. And if it's on task, and that's all you get, or you start reading the job description to people.
Yeah. Big fail.
So big fail there.
And that's how they're communicating it to prospective talent that might help them. I'm curious, like, how the conversation goes when they're doing the pitch or trying to get new clients. Like, how are you describing your company? Or is just,
what are you doing at a job fair?
Yeah.
Like, let's say you have a job fair for all the new SDSU students who graduated or something like that. Are you just, do you just have a big banner behind you saying on task?
Yeah, well, I wonder how much of it is a function of lack of culture or ignorance, or it's not being communicated across that company, versus, my gosh, have we gotten to such a PC environment that people are just afraid of the word company culture and they don't even want to talk about it, right?
Yeah,
or a combination of the two, and they're just like, I'm not even touching this topic.
I mean,
extension 9999. Here you go.
Like I said, you may as well be asking them about their dating life, or something. Like, they seem to be deferring the topic just the same.
It's interesting.
I was not expecting
not
this.
Surprised.
So I'm
and you're saying these are all marketing companies, right?
I think the last two were marketing companies. This last one may not be.
Even more troubling.
Hi, can I get transferred to your HR department?
Yes, speaking.
Okay. Hey, how you doing? I saw a brand assistant manager position open online, and before I applied, I just wanted to ask a little bit about your company culture to make sure we're a good fit. So could you give me an overview of your company culture?
Right there.
Okay.
No.
No company culture?
No company. There is no culture. No. We insist that people just follow the proper channels.
Okay.
No calling in, all that. There's obviously many people applying to this right now, and step one is even seeing if your resume gets you there, and then of course upon interview you can ask all the questions you'd like.
Right on. Thank you so much.
All right.
Have a good one. Bye.
You would think he acts like a sexually inappropriate question.
Yeah.
No, absolutely not.
No,
I'll
absolutely
stop you right
not.
there.
That's why I said it's literally like you're asking about like people's like relationships or something like that. Like, that is so weird. Apparently, you're not allowed to ask about company culture anymore in 2021.
That's so
Was not expecting
not
that, but yeah, he was
about.
just like, stop you right there. You're going through the proper channels. I can't tell you. I'm not talking to you about my company culture. That's a
when
trade
did it become
secret.
dirty?
Yeah,
It's such an interesting phenomena. Set of phone calls you guys got here.
I thought we would be having a much more in-depth discussion, but I think it's more of a reaction video at this point.
Well, I think the lesson is, hey, you can set yourself apart as an organization very easily by embracing company culture, because it seems like, right, these guys are running away from it.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, if you put your company culture first, you'll be able to make a huge differentiation for yourself in the marketplace. So yeah, I think that, that actually wraps up our segment for that. And I know that we had a really awesome discussion about company culture. And did you have any, parting thoughts for the audience?
I did. One just
all right,
jumped
awesome.
at me. So it's sort of like, yes, a bit silly that we've like listened to these videos and how extreme these reactions are, but I think it just illustrates that spectrum of no company culture. And the other end of it is this concept of brand champions. And that's something at Big Picture we really talk about with our entire community, not just our employees, those that we share knowledge with, partner up with, our clients. You should be of the mindset as an owner of your company to really communicate your culture, your brand, who you are in such a way that you're saying it, living, breathing it, acting it, and the result is going to be everyone in that community, employees, clients, they're going to be brand champions, right? We all know the best form of marketing is word of mouth. Guess what? It starts from the inside, right? If you have happy people, whether they're those on your team or those clients that you serve and everyone else that benefits from that, talking about your company because you're killing it and the culture is cohesive and everyone on your team is on the same page so that there's this synergy and the value created is exponentially more because of that, right? That is all sort of grassroots, right? To really propel you forward in addition to all the wonderful technology and like online world of marketing that your company can provide for our community and other business owners.
And yeah, and that's actually, thank you for that, because that alludes into our next topic that we're going to be talking about on the next podcast. Is actually going to be brand awareness and community involvement.
Yes.
So I think that, yeah, once you have your company culture down, the brand awareness and the community involvement becomes a lot more clear and a lot easier and beneficial. Because right now, if one of those guys that apparently no company culture, don't talk to me about it. Let's say he goes to a chamber of commerce mixer or something like that. Someone's gonna be like, "So what does your company do?" We're not gonna talk about it. You better sit down at my office and then we'll talk about
Proper
it.
Channels only.
Proper channels only, lady.
Yeah.
Jeez.
He's gonna make friends real quick.
Yeah. Not a whole lot of brand champions for him, but that's going to be interesting. But thank you so much again for coming on.
Having me.
All right, awesome.
Pleasure.
And I think that wraps it up.